The void between stars. The universe held countless tragedies, but most civilizations had learned to look away. In the vast expanse of the Andromeda sector, on a world called Kilora, the last members of an ancient race called the Zephyrians faced their final days. Their crystalline cities, once brilliant with bioluminescent light, now flickered like dying candles against an endless night. The Zephyrians were beings of pure energy given form, their bodies translucent and shimmering like captured starlight. They had once been master healers, traveling between worlds to mend both flesh and spirit. Their knowledge of quantum biology had saved entire species from extinction. But now, as their own world died beneath them, the galaxy remained silent. High Counselor Vextor of the Galactic Assembly reviewed the latest reports with calculated disinterest. The holographic display showed Kilora's deteriorating atmosphere, the spreading zones of electromagnetic decay, and the dwindling Zephyrian population. He filed the report under natural extinction events without a second thought. After all, the Zephyrians had nothing left to offer. Their healing knowledge was already archived, their technologies catalogued. Why waste resources on a dying race? In the crystalline halls of Kilora's last functioning city, Elder Lumina gathered the remaining 1,000 Zephyrians. Her form, once radiant as a small sun, now barely maintained coherence. "We have sent our final distress signal," she announced, her voice resonating through harmonic frequencies. The void answers with silence, as it has for the past cycle. Young Zephyrians flickered with despair. They had watched their elders fade one by one, their energy patterns unraveling as Kilora's magnetic field collapsed. The planet's core, poisoned by an ancient mining disaster, could no longer sustain their energy-based biology. They needed specialized magnetic stabilizers, technology that existed on 100 worlds, yet no one answered their calls. Far from Kilora, in the depths of unexplored space, the human exploration vessel Pioneer's Hope drifted between star systems. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge, her weathered hands clasped behind her back as she watched the stars. At 45, she had spent half her life among them, pushing the boundaries of human exploration. "Captain," Communications Officer David Park called out, his voice tinged with curiosity. "I'm picking up an unusual signal. It's beautiful, actually, like music, but encoded with data." Sarah moved to his station, listening as the haunting frequencies filled the bridge. The universal translator struggled, then suddenly produced words that made her breath catch. "This is Kilora. Our light fades, our children dissolve into darkness. If any heart still beats with compassion in this cold universe, please." The message repeated, growing weaker with each cycle. Sarah felt something stir in her chest, that distinctly human inability to ignore suffering. She pulled up the star charts. Kilora was 3 days away at maximum speed, in a sector marked as restricted, council jurisdiction. Her first officer, Marcus Rodriguez, saw her expression and shook his head. "Captain, you know the regulations. We can't interfere with council territory without authorization." Sarah continued studying the charts. How long would it take to get authorization? 6 weeks, minimum, plus committee reviews, impact assessments. "And this signal is already degrading," David added quietly. "Whatever's happening there, it's happening fast." Sarah stood silent for a long moment, feeling the weight of every eye on the bridge. Finally, she straightened. "Plot a course for Kilora. Maximum speed." "Captain," Marcus began. "I know the regulations, Marcus. I also know what it means to be human. We don't watch others die when we can help. Log it as an emergency response to an unidentified distress signal. We'll face the consequences later." The Pioneer's Hope turned toward Kilora, its engines flaring bright against the darkness. For 3 days, they pushed their systems to the limit, the distress signal growing weaker with each passing hour. When they finally dropped out of hyperspace, the sight that greeted them stole their breath. Kilora hung in space like a dying ember. Its atmosphere swirled with unnatural colors, electromagnetic storms racing across the surface. The planet's magnetic field visibly fluctuated, creating aurora patterns that spelled death for any energy-based life form. Life signs? Sarah asked. Barely 1,000, concentrated in one location, Science Officer Dr. Lisa Nguyen reported. Captain, these readings, these aren't carbon-based life forms. They're pure energy constructs, and they're dissipating rapidly. Take us in. Full protective shields. As they descended through Kalora's tortured atmosphere, the crew witnessed devastation beyond imagination. Crystalline cities lay shattered, their structures dissolving into base particles. Energy storms swept across dead landscapes, erasing all traces of what had once been a thriving civilization. They landed near the last city, where faint energy signatures clustered. The landing party, equipped with specialized environmental suits, stepped onto Kalora's surface. The very air seemed to weep with electromagnetic interference. Elder Lumina sensed them first. To the Zephyrians, the humans appeared as dense knots of biological energy, burning steady and strong against Kalora's chaotic background. She gathered her remaining strength, projecting herself before the landing party. Sarah stopped, transfixed by the beam of living light before her. Lumina's form wavered like a mirage, her edges fraying into the poisoned air. When she spoke, her words bypassed the ears and resonated directly in their minds. You heard us. After so long in silence, we heard you. Sarah replied softly. We're here to help. Lumina's form brightened momentarily with something like hope, then dimmed. You are not council. You are new humans. Yes, and we don't believe in watching others suffer when we can act. Tell us what you need. For the first time in cycles, Lumina felt the weight of despair lift slightly. She led them into the city, where the surviving Zephyrians huddled in the deepest chambers, their forms barely maintaining coherence. Children, little more than sparks of light, flickered weakly in their parents' arms. Dr. Nguyen scanned everything, her face grim. Captain, their existence depends on precise magnetic field harmonics. The planet's field is collapsing due to core contamination. Without intervention, they have maybe days. Can we stabilize it? Not the entire planet, but we could create localized fields, portable generators that could sustain them. The technology exists. The Altarians use similar systems for their quantum computers. Then let's. A massive tremor cut her off. The ground beneath them cracked, releasing jets of poisoned energy. In the depths below, something stirred, awakened by the new presence on the surface. What was that? Marcus demanded. Lumina's form contracted with ancient fear. The Devourers. They sleep below, feeding on the planet's death. Your arrival, your different energy, it has disturbed them. Sarah felt the mission shifting beneath her feet, becoming something larger, more dangerous. But looking at the dying Zephyrians, at their children fading like forgotten dreams, she knew there was no turning back. How long have they been down there? Since the beginning. Since the mining that poisoned our world. They are why the Council abandoned us. Not just indifference. Fear. Sarah activated her communicator. Pioneer's hope. We need everything you've got on magnetic field generation. And prep the weapon systems. We might have company. Above them, the stars watched in cold silence. But for the first time in ages, Kalora was not alone. Humanity had answered, and they would not leave until the job was done. The real battle for Kalora was about to begin. When silence breaks, the emergency shelters went up with practiced efficiency, testament to humanity's long experience with crisis response. Within hours, the Pioneer's Hope's crew had established a temporary magnetic field generator around the Zephyrian refuge, buying precious time for the dying race. But every human on Kalora could feel it. The tremors growing stronger, something vast stirring in the depths. Captain Sarah Chen stood with Elder Lumina at the edge of their hastily constructed perimeter, watching her crew work. The Zephyrians who could still move helped where possible, their energy forms interfacing with human technology, in ways that surprised both species. "Your people work with such unity," Lumen observed, her form stabilizing slightly within the artificial field. The council races would have formed committees, debated protocols, calculated cost-benefit ratios. Sarah smiled grimly. "Humans have a saying. Committee is just another word for too late. When people are dying, you act first and file paperwork later." The ground shuddered again, this time accompanied by a sound like grinding metal. Dr. Nguyen rushed over, her scanner alive with warnings. "Captain, whatever's down there, it's big. Multiple signatures, moving in formation. They're following the old mining tunnels, heading straight for us. Time: 6 hours, maybe less." Sarah activated her long-range communicator, knowing the signal would reach council space within minutes. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth vessel Pioneer's Hope. We are rendering humanitarian aid on Kilora. Be advised, hostile entities detected beneath the surface. Assistance requested." The response came faster than expected, but not from the source she'd hoped. High Counselor Vexter's holographic image materialized, his insectoid features twisted with what might have been anger or fear. "Humans, you were warned about unauthorized intervention. Evacuate immediately. Kilora is quarantined for reasons beyond your comprehension. With respect, Counselor, there are innocent beings dying here. We won't abandon them. The Zephyrians' fate was sealed long ago. The Devourers cannot be stopped, only contained. Your presence risks releasing them into the galaxy. Then tell us how to fight them." Vexter's mandibles clicked, the equivalent of bitter laughter. "Fight them. They are entropy given form, hungering machines from the galaxy's dark age. They consume energy itself. The Zephyrians' ancestors woke them through deep core mining. We isolated the planet to prevent their spread. So you just wrote off an entire species. The needs of the many, human. The Zephyrians understood this." Luminous form flared with sudden anger. "We understood nothing. You told us we were being quarantined for our protection. That help would come when the solution was found. Lies to ease your conscience while you let us die." The transmission cut off abruptly. Sarah turned to her team, seeing the determination in their eyes. Marcus stepped forward. "Orders, Captain. We'd hold this position. Lisa, I need everything you can find about these Devourers. David, boost our emergency beacon. If we're doing this, I want every human ship in range to know about it. And Marcus," she paused, meeting his steady gaze, "prep every weapon we have. If these things feed on energy, let's see how they handle human ingenuity." Deep beneath Kilora's surface, ancient machines stirred to life. They had no names, for they predated language itself. They were hunger incarnate, created in the galaxy's darkest age as weapons of absolute consumption. For millennia they had slept, feeding slowly on Kilora's dying core. But now, new energy signatures had appeared, dense, vibrant, unlike anything on this world. The first Devourer broke through just after sunset, erupting from the ground like a metallic nightmare. It stood 30 meters tall, its form a constantly shifting mass of dark metal and crackling energy. Where it touched the ground, matter itself broke down, converted to raw energy and consumed. The humans' weapons fired immediately, projectiles and energy beams striking the creature. It paused, not from damage but from curiosity. Then it began to move toward the shelter, each step leaving pools of dissolved reality. "Conventional weapons are ineffective," Lisa reported, her voice steady despite the fear. "It's absorbing the energy from our attacks, converting the kinetic force of projectiles. Captain, it's heading straight for the Zephyrians. To that thing, they're a buffet." Sarah watched the monster approach, her mind racing. Energy-based beings protected by an energy field, facing a creature that consumed energy itself. It seemed hopeless. Then she noticed something. The ground where it steps, it's creating a vacuum, an absence of energy. "Lisa, what happens when there's absolutely no energy in a space?" "Theoretical absolute zero. But that's impossible. Unless something's consuming it all. Marcus, remember the void grenades, the ones designed for ship-to-ship combat. His eyes widened with understanding. They create micro-singularities, tiny pockets of absolute gravitational collapse, which consume everything, including energy itself. Let's give our friend something it can't digest. The first void grenade detonated directly beneath the devourer. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the creature's form began to warp, pulled toward an impossible point of infinite density. It shrieked, not with sound but with electromagnetic pulses that made everyone's teeth ache. Parts of its form collapsed inward, consumed by the very emptiness it had created. But more were coming. The ground split open in a dozen places, devourers of all sizes emerging. Some were massive like the first, others smaller, faster, more numerous. The human defensive line pulled back, void weapons taking a terrible toll, but not fast enough. "There's too many," Marcus shouted over the chaos. "We need a new plan." Sarah looked at the Zephyrians, huddled in their shelter, then at her crew fighting desperately against odds that grew worse by the minute. A memory surfaced, something Lumina had said about her people being healers, manipulators of energy. "Lumina, your people worked with energy for millennia. These things consume it, but what if there's too much? What if the meal becomes poison?" The Elder's form pulsed with sudden understanding. Quantum cascade overload. We could destabilize our own patterns, create an energy surge too chaotic to absorb. But it would mean, I know what it means. How many would it take? 100 of us, maybe more. And they would not survive the process. Sarah felt the weight of what she was asking, but before she could speak, young Zephyrians began floating forward. 100, then 200, their forms brightening with resolve. "We are dying already," one said, its voice like stellar wind. "Let our light burn one last time, not as victims, but as warriors." As the volunteer Zephyrians prepared, linking their energies in a complex pattern, humanity's reinforcements finally arrived. 3 Earth Defense Fleet vessels dropped from hyperspace, weapons charging. But more importantly, they brought something else. A message that scrolled across every communication channel. "Citizens of Earth Federation, this is Admiral Janet Morrison. The Council has officially condemned our intervention on Kilora. They threatened sanctions, isolation, even military action. Our government's response is simple. Humanity does not abandon those in need. All vessels in range are authorized to render assistance. Show the galaxy what it means to be human." The battle reached its crescendo as humans and Zephyrians fought side by side. Void weapons carved temporary gaps in the devourer swarm while energy beings prepared their final sacrifice. Then, at Sarah's signal, 200 Zephyrians released their quantum cascade. The explosion of pure, chaotic energy washed over the battlefield like a stellar flare. Devourers caught in the wave began to overload, their consumption mechanisms unable to process the quantum instability. One by one, they collapsed, imploded, or simply ceased to function, their ancient systems finally overwhelmed. When the light faded, the battlefield was still. The devourers lay inert, their threat ended. But the cost was visible in the dimmed shelter. 200 Zephyrian lights extinguished forever. In the days that followed, human relief ships arrived in force, bringing advanced magnetic field generators, habitat modules, and most importantly, hope. The Galactic Council raged and threatened, but found itself facing the united human federation that refused to back down. Elder Lumina, her form now stable within the new human-built habitats, stood with Captain Sarah Chen as they watched Zephyrian children playing in the artificial sunlight. "Your people sacrificed much for strangers," she said softly. Sarah shook her head. "No, we sacrificed for family. That's what the galaxy doesn't understand about humans. Once we decide you're worth saving, you're not strangers anymore. You're us. The Council will not forgive this. You've upset the balance, shown that their cold equations can be defied." "Good," Sarah smiled. The galaxy's been silent too long. Time for some noise. Above them, the stars no longer watched in silence. They buzzed with transmissions, debates, arguments. Other species, long ignored by the Council, began sending their own distress signals, not to the cold halls of bureaucracy, but to Earth. Humanity had broken the silence, and the galaxy would never be the same. In the end, the Zephyrians numbered only 800, but they lived and their children would grow up knowing that when the universe turned its back, one species chose to turn toward the light. The era of silence was over. The age of human intervention had begun.